one of those days where nothing really seems to go right? That's kind of where I'm at today with Fight Night Picks kicks. So we tried to go live on the Big Mac. That did not work, but we're here. We're going live over on the laptop. So I had to improvise, get some new things out there, and get ready for the show. So you get to see a little bit of the behind the scenes, a little bit of a different look, but we're going to get into the picks nonetheless. I had a big card and a big show ready over on the bigger computer, but we're going to get into it nonetheless over here. So thanks everybody for joining us. Thank you for being incredibly patient and waiting. And for those of you who ended up tuning in, I really appreciate that as well. Try and get everything fixed on the bigger computer, but we're going to get into it nonetheless, like I said. So, as always, one half of your co-hosting duo at Craig Allen FNP. You're looking up at me instead of down at me like you typically do. But we've got a decent little card coming at us this weekend, and thank goodness I made the graphic for the entire card. So, Ivy Aguilera, Nam taking on Zaruk Adashev. A lot of people kind of questioning that matchup. I mean, Adashev, if you look at his overall MMA record, just 3-1, taking on the 11 losses on Tyson Nam's record, but also 18 wins and 1 draw. You've got Julia Vila taking on Gina Mazzani. Mazzani coming back over from a stint elsewhere, coming back into the UFC. She mentioned, in the past couple of weeks, she didn't even know she got cut from the UFC. So kind of crazy stuff there. Then you have Merab Dvalishvili taking on Gustavo Lopez. Lopez coming in on short notice for Ray Borg, who is out there. Maria Agapova, again, another short notice fight, taking on Hannah Cyphers. You got Jordan Espinoza, Mark De La Rosa. Andre Fili taking on the Canadian Charles Jourdain. And Charles Rosa, Kevin Aguilar. You've got Karl Roberson, who missed weight again, taking on Marvin Vettori. And Jessica I, Cynthia Calvillo. So I'm going to get into the comments section. For everybody that's joined me, again, apologize for the technical difficulties. You're not going to get as polished of a show because I switched computers to do this one. But again, appreciate everybody for tuning in nonetheless. So Omar K saying hi. Cornell Hayes Jr. saying, all right, here we go. Let's get into it. Hazmat Control saying night of the parlays. Green Bouillon, you're good. I'll show you there. Your message was held for review. Brad Ski saying, what's up, dude? Let's win some money tonight. Ty Johnson, Nevin Mai joining as well. So appreciate everybody for tuning in. Again, apologies because I was going to go through every single pick individually, the nice polished way with our predictions. But we'll do it this way nonetheless. And if this is the first time that you're joining us with Question Mark Kicks, I appreciate it. Again, this isn't the typical format. But what we normally do, we get into fight of the night, prospect of the night, and some of the different things there. So I'm going to get into it on my other computer so I can just at least check the show notes because, again, just threw this one out there as quick as I could. And we'll have a look and see, kind of what we're getting into. So fight of the night, I've got Dvalishvili taking on Gustavo Lopez, Roberson taking on Fili. Vettori, Fili versus Jourdain, and other, please explain in the comments. So if you guys have somebody that you like here in terms of fight of the night, for me, it's got to be Merab Dvalishvili, who's taking on Gustavo Lopez. I think that has to be the one, just because it's such a crazy type of fight. You look at Merab Dvalishvili, go back to his first fight in the UFC. Go back all the way through, even look into the Ricky Simone fight. Kind of crazy. He'll throw caution to the wind. He'll do some wild, wicked things. But at the same time, even against a guy like Ricky Simone, he was able to kind of withstand the storm. He was able to get these wild takedowns against a primary wrestler and really find a lot of success in that fight. So Merab Dvalishvili taking on Gustavo Lopez. I know a lot of people very high on Gustavo Lopez, just simply due to the fact that he's been able to get a lot of finishes as well. And Danny D, imagine nothing but first round finishes. Listen, I really appreciate you throwing the $2 into the super chat, Danny D. Again, apologies for the way that the show's turned out, but listen, I love everybody that tunes into Fight Night Picks, and I really do appreciate you. So, I had to throw something together. Didn't I? So, if we get into this, for me, fight of the night is Dvalishvili taking on Lopez, and I'm really surprised by those odds. I mean, Merab Dvalishvili is a huge, huge favorite in that fight. I've got it open in front of me. Let's have a look. He's a minus 950 on certain sites. Average on best fight odds is minus 866. Kind of crazy to think in a short notice fight that you'd have that big of a disparity in odds. And Omar K saying, I think people are sleeping on Julia Vila. I don't think many people are sleeping on Julia Vila, Omar K. I know I disagree with you there because she's about a minus 600 favorite. And one of those things is she really a prospect? That's what we'll get into here. We'll get into the top prospect on the card because you have a lot of people coming in. First fights in the UFC. Adashev 3-1. Is Avila still a prospect? Because again, very early on in her career, she's taking on the likes of Marion Renault. So that's pretty tough competition. Maria Agapova coming in from Invicta. I mean, just a great overall body of work. A good record. Taking on Hannah Cyphers, who just lost to Mackenzie Dern, moving up in weight as well. So that's an interesting one. Definitely wouldn't really consider many in terms of prospects on the main card, with the exception of the Canadian Charles Jourdain. Nevin Mai saying Lopez has some insane knockouts, but against some questionable opponents. That much is true. And then Vettori and Jourdain, a lot of people going that way and thinking that those guys are going to get wins. So if we look into it from that sense, top prospect for me, I'm going to say I would have to go with Agapova. I think she really does have a good future, especially at 125 pounds, because who else do you have for really, really, really hot prospects in that division? Macy Barber? Is she still a really hot prospect after losing to Modafferi? I don't know. But that's kind of the way of the logic there. Charles Jourdain, I mean, getting a big win in his second fight. Now listen, he was a 45 TKO in Quebec. He comes into the UFC and takes on Desmond Green, moves up a weight class, didn't fare all that well. All the judges scored that fight for Green, 30-27, moves back down to 45, and then takes on Doo Ho Choi in Busan. Doo Ho Choi is from Busan. And picks up the win there, gets the finish, through some wild stuff. Got rocked himself in the first round, but rocked Choi at the end of the first. And then I know a lot of people pointed to it in the comments, the fact that Doo Ho Choi had an injury in that fight as well. So very interesting fight there, and Jourdain, a big prospect as well. And then in terms of title implications on this card, I would hazard to guess that Calvillo is probably the only fight that has title implications. I mean, Jessica Ai's been there and had the title shot, vicious knockout loss. And then if you look at Calvillo, I mean, a good time at 115, but was it really? I mean, she missed weight in her last fight, and that certainly wasn't a good look. She made weight here, 126, and of course, I missing weight at 126.5. And then the way that we typically end off this show is with, you know, one of the under the radar headlines, something in that regard. And for me, it's the fighters who have, you know, pulled out. You had Ray Borg, you had Ryan Benoit, you had plenty of different fighters that had to pull out due to extenuating circumstances. And then at the same time, you had I missing weight, you had Roberson missing weight, you had Zaruk Adashev also missing weight. So it's kind of interesting there. And then maybe a very under-the-radar headlines, that first fight at welterweight, you get Anthony Ivy stepping in on short notice. You've got Christian Aguilera as well in that one. So that's definitely one that's very interesting. And again, due to the limited setup here that I have on the laptop, because again, planning on doing this in the other computer, I'll go through the picks and kind of offer up my last thoughts and suggestions. So there's a lot of people in that chat, and I really appreciate everybody who's tuned in so far. A little bit of a backstory to put the graphics together in less than 2 minutes notice. This is actually my NEF breakdown. That's the only bit of recording I've really done on this laptop. So I blacked out the NEF 42 that I had, changed a little bit of the text, and threw that fight card up that I made earlier on in the day. So kind of crazy there. But yeah, if we look at that first fight of the night, Anthony Ivy, Aquaman, former champ with WXC, and Fury FC as well. Christian Aguilera, he's fought some bigger names than Ivy has, and realistically, the biggest name that a lot of people would recognize is David Machad, who UFC, Bellator, PFL as well, made it to the finals, taking on a really good fighter in Ray Cooper III in the finals. Ghostface Gaming saying, love this channel, I appreciate you. And Omar K, thank you for letting me know that at least the stream's going well. So I appreciate that. Tommaso Mark saying, what's up, Craig? Good to see you. It's good to see you as well. And it's just it's a lot of fun getting ready for this. So yeah, I think it should be a good card. And just filling up the chat there, and see you later. Come on, buds. All right, so getting back to that fight, Anthony Ivy, Christian Aguilera, to me, it's the fact that Anthony Ivy can not just get it done on the feet, but if he gets it down to the mat, I think he has a distinct advantage there. And that was kind of the thought process behind taking Anthony Ivy. I know Matt agreed with me in that pick. Like to see what everybody's thinking in the chat. Alexis is saying Ivy wins. Let me see up top. Let's see here. Yeah, majority of people going with Ivy. David Mahmood saying Ivy to pick Aguilera apart. I agree with you. So yeah, I think that's pretty good. Ian Everson saying, where's that other guy? Ian, the other guy works. The other guy works on Saturdays. He just got a new job. So that's kind of why the picks have been a little bit in flux. We've been doing them Sunday nights, Monday nights. Normally what we like to do is kind of have them, you know, let's say we put it out yesterday or today. So at least you get a chance to kind of follow along and, oh, they're already there. But Matt got a new job. So yeah, it's a little bit of fun. And it's always makes things interesting. Seth Fast saying Ivy by KO. SB Steve saying Ivy by sub. Ghostface Gaming saying Ivy. I agree with all of you as well. Kyle Kearns, do I like Roberson as a dog? I do not. Karl Roberson, and I'll get into it later on. FRX Base saying Ivy. Ty Johnson saying Ivy as well. So yeah, overwhelming majority saying Ivy. Again, not something that I planned for, but I'll pull it up on Instagram, because what I've been doing, you can find me on Instagram at Craig Allen FNP. You can find me the channel at Fight Night Picks, so you can find us there. But I've been throwing it out in our stories, just all the fights. You can pick who the winner is going to be. 76% picking Anthony Ivy in this one, 24% picking Christian Aguilera. Matt, I'm a Matt. Throw me in, coach. Maybe next time, Matt. Maybe next time. I appreciate you for joining us. So everybody picking Ivy. I'm picking Ivy. If you're taking Aguilera, kudos to you. Big fight for both of these guys in their UFC debuts. And Anthony Ivy also, you know, was there a chance he was going to step in on short notice to be taking on Gerald Meerschaert last weekend? Didn't happen. So we move along. Noah Allen saying, y'all killing it. Almost 100 live viewers. Noah, it's because of you. Really appreciate you. Super Flames, hi mom. Super Flames, thanks for joining us. So the next fight. This is the fight that everybody's been asking about. And again, it just plays into the fact that we didn't get a chance to re-up with some of the picks. We actually did put Agapova and Cyphers up right after the fact when it was announced. So let's get into that. Tyson Nam taking on Zaruk Adashev. It's an interesting fight because Zaruk Adashev, in terms of his, and Rel saying anyone got Jourdain, I have Jourdain, but Tyson Nam taking on Zaruk Adashev. So a lot of people might not be familiar with Zaruk Adashev. In his last fight, he kicked off the Bellator prelims. It was Bellator 232. Lima and Rory McDonald #2, and it was a heck of a card. I remember watching it and seeing Zaruk Adashev, a guy who's, you know, really young. He was 2-1 going into that fight, and a guy who had excellent kickboxing. That's the background. 16-3 total with good old Glory. Joe Manfredi saying, hey, good to see you, Joe. So yeah, really, really good kickboxing, and this is why I believe this line is really close. So I'm going to pull it up on the laptop. Let's see. Tyson Nam is an average of a -148. Zaruk Adashev sitting at a +124. So bit of a surprise there, especially in the fact that Zaruk Adashev has 4 fights in MMA. Tyson Nam has 30. Isn't that crazy? The fact that they'd match those guys up. Now you have to realize, to find a bantamweight on short notice or flyweight on short notice, it could get to Vegas. Yeah, it's tough. And it's a great opportunity because even if Zaruk Adashev loses, I mean, you're probably guaranteed a 3-fight contract in the UFC. So that's a pretty good chance. But again, majority of people are picking Tyson Nam, and I would have to as well. The only thing is, and SB Steve is saying it, and you're very right, SB Steve, is the fact that Tyson Nam likes to strike with strikers. If you go back and watch his fights before the UFC, it was like that. If you look at the fight that Tyson Nam had against Sergio Pettis, where he's a huge underdog, he did that to a fault. And if you looked at it, he'd keep his hands up at every single time Sergio Pettis could get that jab through his guard, and it would knock Tyson Nam's face back. He'd smile, keep going. The one thing I will say in this fight that I think really helps Tyson Nam is the fact that, and we've seen it, and this was before he was in the UFC, Ricky Simone's first fight in the UFC, Merab Dvalishvili, and in that fight, Tyson Nam in his corner. So back then, but even before then, training partners, buddies, and the fact that you can train with such a good wrestler at, a similar weight class would certainly help him in a fight like this. And as long as Tyson Nam can at least keep a little bit of distance, keep throwing that jab, and maybe work together his entire mixed martial arts game, he should be able to get the win over Adeshev. But that's one that I would pass, as Hazmat Control says. I would pass that one. My pick is Tyson Nam. Make it official. And I know, some people have called us out. Hey, all of our picks are underneath all of our videos, and I track them. So if you want to see it, you can go back and watch all the videos, but we're as legit as it gets in terms of tracking all of our picks. The next fight, Julia Avila and Gina Mazzani. What can I say? Julia Avila, good all over the place, but her jiu-jitsu is really her bread and butter and what sets her apart, especially in this division. And Gina Mazzani is a good wrestler, but her jiu-jitsu is totally not on par, or at least on the same level of Julia Avila. And again, it's that kind of conversation of, is Avila still a prospect? Because yeah, she's 7-1 and she's 32 years old. She's been fighting as a pro since 2012. But if you really think about this one, she's on a 3-fight win streak. She beat Penny Kanzad in her last fight, who's a pretty good striker. Alexa Connors over in Invicta. But overall, good jiu-jitsu, a totally random camp in Oklahoma City. She's a geologist. That's kind of neat. And then Gina Mazzani getting cut from the UFC, coming back here. She had a win in her last fight in another organization. And yeah, I mean, it's kind of tough with Mazzani because, she's faced really good competition and she's lost to that really good competition. Juliana Pena in The Ultimate Fighter, Sarah McMahon, Lita Landsberg, Macy Chason as well. I would have to go with Avila in this fight. It looks like a lot of people are picking Julia Avila as well. We might as well bring it up over on the Instagrams, see what the people are saying. Tyson Nam over Adeshev, 91% going with Tyson Nam. Julia Avila, Gina Mazzani, 74% going with Julia Avila. So then we move on to the next fight, which again, it was supposed to be Merab Dvalishvili and Ray Borg. Matt and I both picked Merab to get the win. Enter in Gustavo Lopez, who I think matches up quite well with Merab Dvalishvili. And if you go back and you watch Gustavo Lopez's last fight, I know Combate's been pushing it a lot. I know it was on social media a lot after they made the announcement. And I understand that he's a bantamweight champ over in Combate. And yes, they have pretty good fighters in some of the lower weight classes. Now, you could argue with me and say, well, when he beat Vicente Marquez, who was 4-5, by Von Flue in the first round, well, that's probably not going to happen in a fight against Merab Dvalishvili. All right, that's fine. Then you have Jose Alde. That's a rematch. He lost by split in the first one. Should be able to get the win in this one. And then Joey, Mr. Joey, who, that's kind of a tough one where he finished him by first round knockout. So big win for him there. But again, I don't see it the way of Lopez in this one, and I notice I'm lagging over on the other computer, so I apologize for that. I'm going to shut down everything on my laptop. It's starting to get loud. Let's shut all that down. There we go. Still says encoding overloaded, but it was short notice that we were going to end up on this computer anyway, and now I'm pretty well paused over there, so that's not good. We'll try and fix that. Let's see. Says that we're going to get some buffering. The fan's going nuts. So let's just get into it really, really quick. So I'm going to take Merab in that fight. In the next one, Agapova and Hannah Cipher is going to go the way of Agapova. Realistically, I mean, a great prospect. I notice I'm starting to kind of level out over there, so that's pretty cool. But going to go with Agapova in that one against Hannah Cipher's. I mean, Maria Agapova, for my money, probably the best prospect on this card. Hannah Cipher struggles against bigger fighters. Yes, again, she's got to win over Jodie Esquibel in the UFC. Hannah Cipher's, for Cipher's to have a good fight, and I talked about this one with Drake Riggs before Hannah Cipher's fought Mackenzie Dern, but it's true for just about every Hannah Cipher's fight. For Hannah Cipher's to have a good fight, she has to get in really close and then hammer away. But it just hasn't happened, and she's at such a disadvantage being so much smaller than Agapova. Like, I'll get, Agapova, whether she's 5'6", like some sites say, or she's 5'8", she's huge for the weight class. And Hannah Cifers, like Tommaso Mark saying, she gets fed to the wolves. She's faced some really good competition so far in the UFC. So taking Agapova in this fight. The next one, Espinoza, Mark De La Rosa. Listen, a lot of people were saying that I was crazy for taking Jourdain Espinoza. And where it gets really interesting is over on the Instagram. So we go back to the last fight, 67% going with Agapova over Cifers. That's 16 votes for Agapova and 8 for Cifers. Then into the next one, Espinoza, De La Rosa. 13 went with De La Rosa, 11 went with Jourdain Espinoza. I'm going with Jourdain Espinoza. I mean, a really good wrestler. The one part of the game that I would say that Mark De La Rosa has over Jourdain Espinoza is his jiu-jitsu. But apart from that, I don't see where Mark De La Rosa beats Jourdain Espinoza. He doesn't beat him on the feet. Jourdain Espinoza's, again, maybe not the best striker, but listen, at least he can string together some combinations, and he keeps somewhat busy. Mark De La Rosa, it's labored shots, it's one shot, in and out, one shot, in and out, this and that. But Mark De La Rosa so far in the UFC just hasn't had that great of a run. So for all of those reasons, and again, I've shut down everything on the card or on the computer, but gonna go with Jourdain Espinoza here. Noah Allen saying De La Rosa just because I need an underdog. Eldar Ganyev saying Cifers is easy. Andre Fili, if he fights smart, Jourdain will come out fast. SB Steve saying I saw Espinoza only because of his speed. Yeah, I mean, I think that Espinoza is going to get the win. Trevor Parker brings up a good point, Guillermo Salazar saying Charles Rosa underdog. There's a lot of people that are saying Espinoza. There's a lot of people that are saying De La Rosa, but I'm going to be going with Espinoza. So going with Espinoza in that one. Now, moving into the next fight, Andre Fili taking on the Canadian Charles Jourdain, coming out of Beloeil, Quebec, Canada. Listen, I mean, we're out of Fredericton, Quebec, Canada, so for us to get to Beloeil, it's probably, 8-9 hours. We're a ways away on the East Coast next to Maine. But Charles Jourdain, for what it's worth in the UFC, comes in, fights Desmond Green at lightweight. Well, he's a featherweight, and he looked a lot smaller in that fight. Got beat. It was a New York card. You had the New York guy and Desmond Green, the hometown crowd behind him. Then he takes on Doo Ho Choi, and I mentioned this from the start. It was in Busan. Doo Ho Choi is from Busan. It was a crazy fight, and it was one of the things that was mentioned in the comments under that video was the fact that Charles Jourdain throws those crazy knees, and SB Steve saying fight of the night. I think this is a definite fight of the night. This or Merab Dvalishvili and Gustavo Lopez. But Andre Fili, he's just such a wily vet. I mean, 20-7, he's still a young guy, but he's had a lot of time in the octagon. He's been with UFC for a very long time. He's fought some big names. I mean, you can't forget about some of his crazier fights. He's got a win over Artem Lobov. He fought Max Holloway. So throw those two guys together, and then you get a guy like Charles Jourdain and Ty Johnson saying Jourdain is fast and has lots of energy to start off his fights. Ghostface Gaming, I love Canada, is the best country, but I got to go against my boy. I think this is a fight of the night. I'm going to stick with my underdog pick of Charles Jourdain. You might think I'm crazy. I will say this. If you're a big Andre Fili fan, good leg kicks, good distance management, good jiu-jitsu. He can work a takedown in there every now and again. Jourdain just has that raw talent and that power and ability, and that's why I think that Charles Jourdain is going to be able to pull away with a win here. I think he's going to be able to get it done. I wouldn't be surprised if he does something crazy and gets a finish, so I'm going to go that far, but I'm excited for this fight. You can come at me in the comments afterwards, but I think it's a really good one. So looking forward to Andre Fili and Jourdain. Trent saying, watch an interview. Fili wants to knock out Jourdain. Thoughts on this, Craig? Trent, all I can say is, this is something that happens all the time. A lot of people will say, hey, I'm going for the knockout. You're never going to win a decision. You're always going to get a finish, Trent. So that's one of those things. Most people are going for the finish. But I see it the way of Jourdain. So that's the way it is. Lucky 2001s, why do you not do live stream while the fights are going on? We used to. That was something that we used to get into. Let's see what else. Michael, saying Jourdain will prove people wrong. His flying knees are lethal. They are. And Omar K saying Jourdain, French pronunciation is on point. Moi je parle en français. On pourrait faire cette émission en français, but we're not going to do it in French. We're going to do it in English. Screw it. We'll do it live. Next fight, we've got Charles Rosa taking on Kevin Aguilar. Originally, I took Kevin Aguilar. It's not one of those fights where I would want to stay on top of that hill, but at the same time, Charles Rosa, for him to come back so soon, when was the last time somebody out there in the comments or watching this saw a guy get taken down and put in so many precarious positions only to go on and lose the fight with multiple 10-8 rounds? It was very, very interesting. Very interesting. So, Charles Rosa coming back in here. And the other thing is, very accomplished grappler in his own right, and very surprised there as well. So, interesting to see that Rosa's back and in action. Alec Holler saying, what's your best value pick? We'll get into that in a bit. A lot of people taking Charles Rosa. I can see it the way of Kevin Aguilar. I mean, Charles Rosa, if he's going to get the win, is he going to string together some combinations? Is he going to bring the fight to the ground? Like, what's he going to do? Because he's had a lot of time off. So Michael Vangelo is saying Aguilar is a dangerous hitter. Charles Rosa has ring rust. I don't know if I totally agree with you here, and I'm only saying this in a constructive way, and I'm not trying to be mean. But Charles Rosa can do some stuff on the feet, but he just stands so square, and that's the thing. And if you're a guy like Kevin Aguilar, you can get him at quite a few different angles. You have to be wary if it goes to the ground, but at the same time, look at the Manny Bermudez fight. And like I said, I had to switch this stream from the big computer to the laptop, where I had my NEF 42 picks that I had done up. So this fight card right there is actually covering up Manny Bermudez taking on Bruce Boynton from Portland, Maine, which is kind of funny. But I'm still going to bring up Manny Bermudez because if you look at that fight against Charles Rosa, Bermudez got lazy. Got stuck in that armbar, and it was just weird. Most people would have just gotten out of it. FRX Base saying Rosa has awkward boxing. He does, but he's just, again, kind of boxy, kind of square, like he'll land some shots, but and I just don't see him getting the win here against Kevin Aguilar. So going with Aguilar here, that's one of those ones that I would not, I would hesitate to get into. And listen, Fight Night Picks is built around let's get into it, but I would hesitate that. Ty Johnson saying chat's bumping. Ty, yes it is. Appreciate you, and hopefully we can have our picks up shortly for next weekend's card. I mean, listen, Curtis Blades taking on Alexander Volkov. What a fight. Now we get into our co-main event of the evening. Karl Roberson taking on Marvin Vettori. A lot of people quick to point out the fact that, Karl Roberson going into their first fight, which was booked not that long ago, he had a certain issue. I believe it's losing mass, spinal fluid, this and that, but it's associated with the weight cut, and he was just too sick to even weigh in. Marvin Vettori lost his mind, and now they fight again, but Karl Roberson misses weight by a long shot. So Karl Roberson weighs over, Marvin Vettori weighs what he should, and then you look at this fight, and ostensibly, I have to take Marvin Vettori. I mean, Karl Roberson, and Matt brought it up in our prediction video, the fact that Karl Roberson, he had some moments against a bigger guy in Glover Teixeira. But just in this fight, I just don't see him beating Marvin Vettori. And again, a lot of people had said as well, if you thought that Marvin Vettori beat Israel Adesanya, you're crazy. And I agree with that. Yeah, I don't think he won it, but he made it close, and one of the judges scored that fight for Marvin Vettori, so you at least have to say that. Michael's saying, did you see they had an altercation in the lobby? These guys hate each other. Makes it more entertaining. It's one of the few fights that gets very entertaining that's on this card, and there's, it's one of those ones where the UFC thought, is the juice worth the squeeze to rebook this one so quick? And it was. And then the other fight that, again, is the juice worth the squeeze. And I don't know if Kevin McDonald's going to referee it, but Ankalaev and Kutselaba, that's going to be a good one. So I'm glad that one got rebooked as well. But in the fight between Roberson and Vettori, have to go with Marvin Vettori in that one. I just don't see Karl Roberson overpowering him. I don't see Karl Roberson totally beating him on the feet. Marvin Vettori does a pretty good job of at least not getting into an absolute total dogfight. Now, I just said that. That's a crazy thing to say because he's very upset. But usually a guy, once they get into the octagon, they keep themselves composed. You don't see too many people fighting mad. So, yeah, I'm going to be going with Vettori, sticking with the original pick. I believe Matt and I both said that Vettori was going to win by arm triangle. I could see it. But, yeah, it should be a good fight. So, yeah, I'm going with Vettori. Back into the chat. Manny Lopez, what are Adeshev's chances? If he keeps it standing, pretty good chances. Still going with Tyson Nam. Guillermo Salazar, it's never good to fight from pure emotion. Roberson has been known for being the calm killer. That's true. Ghostface Gaming, Vettori by TKO inside 2 rounds. And after he's going to start screaming all over the place. If he gets a win, he's going to be emotional. PUBG Truck Troll saying, I'm on Karl Roberson but not confident. Nico saying, normally the fighter missing weigh-ins. Missing weight wins. I don't see it in this one. Yeah, that's always interesting too. Normally the fighter that misses weight usually has a good shot at winning, but I don't see it for Karl Roberson there. I just don't. And I think a future for him at 205 pounds, it's a division where you have a pretty good shot at moving up the ladder because it's not as busy of a division as middleweight. So it'll be interesting to see what Roberson does after this one. We're going to stick with the pick of Marvin Vettori. And then we get into our main event of the evening. Jessica I and Cynthia Calvillo as I have a sip out of a Moscow Mule mug. There we go. Pat Bain saying Jourdain. Going with Jourdain, are we? Jessica I and Cynthia Calvillo. That's one of those fights where it's weird. Jessica I, you would think if she's going to get the win, it's got to stay standing. She missed weight. She didn't look good on the scale at all. They faced off after the fact. Okay, that's all I pretty much have for Jessica I. I mean, she beat a good up-and-comer in her last fight against Araujo. But I just don't see Jessica I getting a win in this one. And I think that's kind of wild to say because Cynthia Calvillo, for what it's worth, she fought some all-right competition. And, of course, strawweight is a deeper division than flyweight. But it's very interesting that she comes in and takes on this big of an opponent so soon. You'd think they bring Cynthia Calvillo in and she would fight somebody that's 10 to 15. Maybe she fights like a Jillian Roberson or apparently I've got Canadians on my mind. Somebody from ATT because now she's training at AKA and she was a Team Alpha Male before. But yeah, I have Cynthia Calvillo in this fight. I think, having that background of training with Team Alpha Male and some of those wrestlers, and just I'm going to name some of these people. Andre Fili, who's on this card, Chad Mendez, Uriah Faber, Darren Elkins, and I can go on and on and on. But you look at Cynthia Calvillo going from that gym that's so good and then coming into this one, training at AKA. And I mentioned, and I know a couple people said, well, she's not training with Khabib. But at AKA, you have Khabib Nurmagomedov. You have Daniel Cormier. You have a lot of experienced fighters that championship pedigree, this and that. Both gyms very good. I think a camp change like that could certainly fare well for Cynthia Calvillo. And there are a lot of different parts of her game that I think will help her going into those later rounds. I mean, I believe it's going to go to round 4, round 5. And I think Cynthia Calvillo having a much better weight cut, not having to cut to straw weight, not missing weight like Jessica I, and no Allen saying strategy here. Ivy and Aguilar, interesting strategy. But yeah, going to go with Cynthia Calvillo in this fight. And it's an interesting one because, and I'll bring up the odds on the bigger computer here so we can have a look at them just quick. But Cynthia Calvillo is a favorite. She opened at plus 115, now trending around minus 135. So pretty interesting there. Guillermo Silva saying, Ivy, Nam, Avila, Rosa, Cyphers, Espinoza, Fili, Dvalishvili, under 2.5, Vettori, Roberson, and Calvillo. From a betting perspective, would I take Rosa or De La Rosa? Those are two of the fights that I wouldn't touch with a 10-foot pole. But yeah, fairly confident with Jourdain Espinosa in that one. And Noah saying, let's see, wonder if Ivy will get a knockout. If it gets to the ground and he can get on top. And Ty Johnson, hope you have a great night, man. Good luck on the picks, everyone. Now let's get into it. Well, I want to first of all thank everybody for tuning in because, of course, we had technical difficulties. This wasn't the setup. I was going to go through every single one of them individually. Normally, there's a little bit more of a production value. Now you're looking straight into my face and kind of up from the laptop. But yeah, it's always fun with Fight Night Picks. I don't have an outro video. I don't have a whole lot on this laptop, but we still made it through the entire card. And looking forward to next weekend as well because, like I said, it's a really good one. Curtis Blades, Alexander Volkov. Of course, you got fights, in July coming at you from Abu Dhabi. So there's a lot of stuff to look forward to. So if you missed it, I'll go through the picks one more time. Going with Ivy, Tyson Nam, Julia Vila, Rob Dvalishvili, Maria Agapova, Jourdain Espinosa, Charles Jourdain, the underdog, Kevin Aguilar, Marvin Vettori, and Cynthia Calvillo on that one. So really appreciate everybody in the chat. Guillermo saying best of luck, peace. Appreciate you, Guillermo. Appreciate everybody for hopping into the chat. Enjoy the fight card tonight. It's not one of those great ones. I know Nico saying that Ray Borg fight's still on. No, Ray Borg's off the card and steps Gustavo Lopez. Ede Souza, I don't understand English, translate to Portuguese. I can do my best. I'll do my best to try and get some translations in there. That's difficult, but yeah, really looking forward to this card. I want to thank everybody for tuning in, and like we always say,